Translation. My dear king, when oblations of ghee and food, grains like barley, sesame, offered in sacrifice, they turn into celestial smoke, which carries one to successfully higher planetary systems like the kingdoms of Dhuma, Ratri, Krishna Paksha, Dakshinam, and ultimately the moon. Then, however, the performance of sacrifice descend again to earth to become herbs, creepers, vegetables, and food grains. These are eaten by different living entities and turned into semen, which is injected into females' bodies. Thus one takes birth again and again. Translation. Everyone can repeat, please. My dear King Yudhishthira, when oblations of ghee and food grains like barley, sesame are offered in sacrifice, they turn into celestial smoke, which carries one to successfully higher planetary systems, like the kingdoms of Dhoma, Ratri, Krishna Paksha, Dakshinam, and ultimately the moon. Then, however, the performance of sacrifice descend again to earth to become herbs, creepers, vegetables, and food grains. These are eaten by different living entities and turn to semen, which is injected into females' bodies. Thus one takes birth again and again. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. This is explained in the Bhagavad Gita. Te evam bhaktva svagam lokam vishalam shena pratya matya lokam vishanti evam traya dharmana anupurna panana gata gatam kama kama labhanti. When those who follow the Prithvi Marg have enjoyed heavenly sensual pleasure, they return to the mortal planet again. Thus, through the Vedic principles, they achieve only flickering happiness. Following the Prithvi Marg, the living entity who desires to be promoted to the higher planetary systems performs sacrifices regularly, and how he goes up and comes down again is described here in the Srimad Bhagavatam as well as in the Bhagavad Gita. It is also said, Traigunya Vishaya Veda. The Vedas mainly deal with the three modes of material nature. The Vedas, especially the three Vedas named Sama, Yujir, and Rik, vividly describe this process of ascending to the higher planets and returning. But Krishna advises Arjuna, Traigunya Vishaya Veda Nistraigunya Bhavarjuna. One has to transcend these three modes of material nature. Then one will be released from the cycle of birth and death. Otherwise, although one may be promoted to the higher planetary systems such as Chandraloka, one must again come down. After one's enjoyment due to pious activities is finished, one must return to this planet in rainfall and first take birth as a planet or creeper, which is eaten by various animals, including the human beings, turn to semen. This semen is injected into the female body, and thus the living entity takes birth. Those who return to the earth in this way take birth especially in higher families like those of the Brahmanas. It may be remarked in this condition that even the modern so-called scientists who are going to the moon are not able to stay there, but returning to their laboratories. Therefore, whether one goes to the moon by modern mechanical arrangements or by performing pious activities, one must return to earth. That is clearly stated in this verse and explained in Bhagavad Gita. Even if one goes to the higher planetary system, Yanti Deva Vrata Deva, one's place there is not secure. One must return to Mrityaloka, Brahmana Bhuvana Loka, Purna Avanta Arjuna. Aside from the moon, even if one goes to Brahma Loka, one must return. Yata pranyana nirvanti tad dhamma pranapa mama. But if one goes home, back to Godhead, he need not return to this material world. My dear King Yudhishthira, when oblations of ghee and food, grains, barley and sesame are offered in sacrifice, they turn into celestial smoke, which carries one to successfully higher planetary systems like the kingdoms of Doma, Ratri, Krishna Paksha, Dakshinam, ultimately the moon. Then, however, the performance of sacrifice described again to descend again to earth to become herbs, creepers, vegetables and food grains. Those are eaten by different living entities and turned to semen, which is injected into a female bodies. Thus one takes birth again and again. Om Jnana Timarandasya Jnanam Jnana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militan Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nityanamine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Satarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadada Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrindam Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So I thank the devotees for giving me this opportunity to say something. Generally when it comes to class, it's very, very easy for the mind wanting to do other things, get ready for the day and things like that. So it takes great self-control to sit in Srimad Bhagavatam, especially day after day. Sometimes we even see who the speaker is and think, oh, I don't want to listen to that guy. So I thank you all very much for taking this time to listen to a few words. Vanchakalpa trubhyascha kripa sindubhyeva cha patito nam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. So I couldn't have chosen a more appropriate verse for Halavananda Pukura Pundit. So generally, when we see an advertisement for an exotic place to go to, the mind gets very easily distracted and wants to go there. When I was in New York, there was a huge big billboard in the front of the New York skyscrapers, and advertisement was saying, are you fed up of the New York City? Are you fed up of the busy city life? Escape to the exotic Bahamas. And they had a nice beach with nice palm trees, with coconut, with some woman with a grass skirt. And immediately the mind wants to go to that place. So the Vedas, in some way, they are like a travel agent also, because they advertise the heavenly planets. So generally, 99% of the populace in the Vedic culture are interested in going to somewhere very, very nice. Even in our own kind of situation, I know the karmis, one of the most things they all work very, very hard for is that moment when they get a chance to go on a holiday. Maybe you recall when you were a young kid, your parents, maybe you're getting very excited. So it's a very, very exciting thing to go to somewhere nicer than where we are. So in the material world, which is called Mrityuloka, it's a place of suffering. It's a place of anxiety. No one wants any of this. So the Vedas here explain that there are other higher planetary systems that one can go to to try and enjoy. So by performing certain yagyas, which are prescribed in the Vedas, one can achieve some of these higher planetary systems. So the Vedas describe that there's over 400 different yagyas one can perform for the benefit of oneself. And these yagyas, they can last a few moments, they can last a few hours, they can last a few weeks, and some yagyas, they are performed, they can last a whole lifetime. Different yagyas are there, which are for personal elevation. Some yagyas are for the public. Some yagyas are for the Brahmins. Some yagyas are for the Kshatriyas, the kings. Some for the Shudras. So different types of yagyas are prescribed in the Vedas. And whatever takes your fancy, then you go to the Brahmins. And the Brahmins, they perform the yagyas. Now, in the yugas before, the Treta Yuga, the yagyas were the means which we perform to become spiritualized or to elevate ourselves. And the Brahmins, they studied from the Vedas, particularly the Rig Veda, how to perform these yagyas. In Kali Yuga, it's not so easy to get such Paka Brahmins. Although we perform yagyas ourselves, the pronunciation, the proper performance, it's very, very, very difficult to perform. We have our Purohit here, and Neruda probably can confirm. It's not very, very easy to perform. So you need very specialized Brahmins. And in Kali Yuga, it's very, very, very hard to find Brahmins who can perform these type of yagyas. So apparently there's a few Brahmins in South India, particularly in Kerala, who are still quite into the ritualistic karma kanda side of the Vedas, which described here, to elevate one to the higher planetary systems. But by performing these yagyas, one crucial important thing is, like every holiday, what comes? Back to work. So you're all excited, you all go on a holiday, you got your lotion, you got your tickets, but then as you get there, practically the moment you're counting your days when you're coming back. And the day before your flight, you're dreading to come back to this existence again. So the heavenly planets are like that. So Prabhupada explains, even though these Brahmins, they can elevate you to these heavenly planets, you cannot stay there. It's a return ticket. It's not a one-way ticket. As much as we want to so-called stay in the heavenly planets, the Vedas describe how nice the heavenly planets are. There's no old age. There's no suffering. There's no sleeping in class. There's somaras that intoxicates all the pores of the body. Kids are born at 16, so no going to school, no education, no failing exams, A-levels, all failed. No pregnancy for the ladies to carry this child for 9 months. But something quite interesting is that when you're in the heavenly planets, you cannot acquire any pious activities there. Pious activities are only gained in the earthly realm. So whatever pious activities you have in the earthly realm, you cash it, you redeem it in the heavenly planets, and as that expires, You cannot extend it. As much as you want to stay there, you cannot stay there. You have to return back to the material world. So these yagyas are different types. Yagya generally is performed for the satisfaction of Lord Vishnu, who is known as Yagyeshvara. He is the Lord of the sacrifice. So all sacrifices which are performed, the ultimate purpose, the Purusha, the enjoyer, is Lord Vishnu. So the purpose of this sacrifice is to praise Lord Vishnu. And through Lord Vishnu, these desires can be fulfilled. So it says, Yagnanat Kamano Yatra, that if we perform these sacrifices for Vishnu, then we will become free from karma bandhana. So whatever activities we do in this world, it creates some kind of actions or reactions. We get certain karma. But when we do activities for Lord Vishnu, then this frees us from this karma bandhana. So there are different types of sacrifices. In the Vedas, it is explained that if one is desirous of having a child, then they can perform a certain yagya known as Kama Shristi Yagya. And by performing this yagya, one may obtain a child. So do we know anyone in the scriptures who performed this particular yagya? Most famous? Maharaj Dasarat. So Maharaj Dasarat was, unfortunately, didn't have any children to carry on his reign. And usually, the king, he must have descendants so that his throne can be passed on, his kingdom. So Maharaj Dasarat, he had no descendants. So under the guidance of Vasishta, he was told that he has to call a sage known as, anyone knows? Sorry? No. Rishyasingha. Now he's quite an interesting chap because he is born with a horn. He has an interesting kind of a body. And if you want, there's quite a bit of description in the Mahabharata. And it's explained that this sage is so pure that any performance of sacrifices he performs will be achieved. Because from the beginning of his birth, right till his youth, he was well trained by his father, and he was kept away from all materialistic kind of viewpoints. And it's even explained that in his life, his father, he saw an Apsara known as Urvashi, who was sent by Indra, because Indra, for some reason, he always gets a little bit disturbed when yogis perform sacrifices, when yogis perform mystic yoga, they become very, very powerful. And with this power, Indra's position gets threatened. So then he sent Urvashi, and when Urvashi was there, the sage saw this beautiful form, and then a child was born, and this was Rishyasingha. Of course, this lost the meditation of the sage, and then the Urvashi, she went away, and the sage was disturbed that she went away. So then he took it upon himself that he would never let his son ever see the form of a woman. So then he protected his son. And there was a king, his name was Romapad, and he had a kingdom which had famine. And in this kingdom, it was explained by the guru there that if you could get Rishyasingha into your kingdom, then rain would come. But no one wanted to go there because they were very, very scared of the sage. The sages are known to be very benevolent, very benign. They can give blessings, very peaceful. But at the snap of a click, they can become very angry. They can curse, like Durvasha Muni, Vashishta, Vishwamitra. So they were very, very scared. They didn't want to go and approach. So the king requested some Apsaras to go. And then when the Apsaras came to the hermitage, they waited until the father was out of the forest. It is said that when Rishashinga saw this lady, he had never seen the form of a lady in his life, and he was a bit shocked. He's never seen this. But immediately the mind became very, very attracted. And as the story goes, he married the king's daughter. The father was very angry at first, but slowly he calmed down and he gave his blessings. So this sage was invited by Maharaj Dasharat to perform the Kamashishti Yagya to beget the child. Another Yagya, which is mentioned here, the horse, the Ashwamedha, again mentioned in the Ramayana, which was performed by Lord Ramachandra. So generally the king, to claim his authority, they would have a horse, and the horse would be released. And wherever the horses would go, then whichever kingdom the horse went, the kings had to pay tribute to the king who sent the horse. Sometimes they wouldn't, and they would hold the horse, and there would be a fight. If there was no fight, then the horse was allowed to roam around. At one point, Lord Ramachandra's horse was stopped by Love and Kush. And then as the Ashwamedha Yagya horse goes all the way round, it comes back home, and as explained in the Bhagavatam, the horse is sacrificed. It's divided into 16 parts and offered into oblations, into the fire. Then there's another yagya which is performed, which very, very, very few kings can perform, because it's a very, very risky yagya. It's a very, very costly yagya. And not many kings have the authority to perform this yagya, known as Rajasurya sacrifice. And only the kings can perform this. So Rajasurya sacrifice is the highest of all the yagyas. It's the most expensive, because everything has to be made from gold. And that is why the brothers, particularly Arjuna, was sent. He's known as Dhananjaya, the conqueror of wealth, to gain, Jai Shishirada Gokulananda, to gain immense wealth to perform the Rajasurya sacrifice. And the idea is that the king would send his senapatis to the different kingdoms, and then the senapatis would ask the kings that our king is going to be crowned Mahadiraj Raja. Maharaj Diraj Raja means the king of kings. He is going to be the king of kings. Do you have any objections? So some would say yes, some would say no. So we know that Jarasandha objected, and in this way the Rajasurya sacrifice was performed. Then there's a yagya known as Jatishwa Yagya that is performed for your well-being, if you want wealth and things like that. Then there's another yagya known as Panchagni Yagya, and this elevates one to the planet of Satyaloka, the planet of Lord Brahma. So if someone specifically wants to go to the planet of Lord Brahma, you can get these Brahmins. They will perform a yagya, known as Pancha Agni Yagya, and this will elevate you to Brahma Loka. So these are all different types of yagyas which are performed. As I explained, there are different types. Some are personal, some are public, some for the kings. But if one obtains the human form of life, then there are 16 specific sanskars that the humans have to perform to elevate the soul and to free the soul from certain bandhana. And the first one starts with the parents, known as the Garbhada Sanskar. So when the Garbhada Sanskar is performed, then the parents invite the soul into the family. A certain amount of preparation is made, and then one will get an elevated soul into one's family. If one doesn't perform these kind of sacrifices, as was the case in Kashyapa and Aditi, then you have Hiranyakashipu and Hiranyayaksha. So these sanskars are there so that we can get elevated souls in our life. Once we perform the Garbhada Sanskar, then there's the Jati Karma, means the intelligence for the child. When the child is in the womb, the priest is invited, then he performs this Karma, Yagya, which is for the intelligence. Then there's the Namkarna, the birth of the child. The child is given a certain name. There's a certain astrology is performed. We know Krishna had this performed by Maharaj Nanda. And then there's the Balmundan, when the child's hair is removed, then he goes to the Gurukula. These are all different yagyas that are performed. Samskar means enlightenment, to enlighten the soul, to uplift the soul. Then there's one sanskar. Some of you might perform, some of you might not, depending. It's called the Viva Sanskar, the marriage. So again, this is a sacred ceremony, the marriage, the Viva Sanskar. And the last sanskar is known as the Anyati Sanskar. That's when the ashes of the body at the funeral are thrown into the Ganga. So up to now, we've been talking about all different yagyas that can help us. However, although these yagyas might elevate us to the heavenly planets where there's pleasure, it is very, very limited. The real yagya is Sankirtan Yagya. Yagnir Sankirtan Praye He Sumeidashaha. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, it is explained the real yagya is the Sankirtan Yagya, the performance of chanting of the Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So there are many, many quotes in the scriptures that is explained just by simply chanting this Maha Mantra, it is equivalent of performing 100 Ashwamedha Yagyas. These yagyas are very, very difficult. They're very, very costly. As I explained, they're not easy to perform. But if one simply chants the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, this is the real yagya. This is the best way to achieve the ultimate goal in life. Because these other kind of benefits, they're asat, they're temporary. They bring us back to Mrityu Loka. Whereas Sankirtan Yagya, as explained here, then if you perform this, then this one elevates you to the spiritual world where one does not return. Now I know we hear so much about emphasis on chanting. We know the very importance of chanting. Today, I even feel it's some kind of high authority are telling us. It's written there, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So Radha Gokulanda are telling us that this is a real Sankirtan Yagya. So this chanting, for it to have any benefit, has to be performed in a way that is free from offense. Sometimes it's so easy to become complacent in our life, especially as the years roll on in spiritual life, year after year after year. Sometimes you chant and you think, how come I'm not getting any taste? You look at your hands and you see the hairs are not standing. You wonder, how come there's no tears? And sometimes if you look at the type of japa we're chanting, maybe you might explain. I'm not judging anyone here, but this is all about me. Some of the japa that we performed maybe might not give us the real benefit. Because when we chant, unless we chant purely, then the real power of the holy name will not come. And sometimes it might seem so repetitive that we're chanting again and again and again and again. But it is by this chanting alone that we can actually purify ourselves. Just like when we have jaundice. I don't know if anyone's been to India and has jaundice. Anyone ever had this unfortunate disease? Anyone felt like it went yellow? Well, I saw one person, he had jaundice, and the cure for jaundice is sugar. Now, sugar by nature is very, very sweet. However, if you're in a jaundice conditioned state of being, this sweet tastes like bitter. So, bitter is something that is an acquired taste. The other day we were having some sabji somewhere, and he had some Karela pakoras. And then my son said, why did God even invent Karela, you know? I mean, who even the right frame of mind likes Karela? So it's a very, very bitter. No one really likes bitter things. But the interesting thing is that by taking this sweet, which is bitter at the beginning, by constantly taking it, it becomes sweet. So spiritual life is like that. At the beginning, it's very austere. We have to get up. No one wants to get up at the crack of dawn. No one wants to chant. No one wants to read the scriptures if we had it our way. I know my way. Just take the life of ease. But when we perform these austerities, the toughness, the bitterness eventually turns into sweetness. Whereas the material world is the other way. Straight away, it's a quick fix. You get some quick benefit. But as explained again here, that you might find that happiness, but it runs out eventually. It comes to an end. Everything has a beginning, a middle, and an end. But in spiritual life, it is eternal. And because by nature we are that spirit, if we connect to that supreme spirit, which is Krishna, then we will attain real happiness and real peace in connection with God through the chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And it's not easy. Only those who Sumedisha, those who are intelligent. If you look in the general populace of the world, people are following this other kind of ritualistic ceremonies. They want to be elevated to this other higher forms of sense gratification. But Krishna says to Arjuna in the purport that the Vedas, they mainly deal with the three modes of material nature. We have to be careful we don't get distracted from there. And we have to stay focused in the real goal of life. which is to be Krishna conscious and to elevate ourselves. And hopefully, if we perform the chanting properly, then we can enter into the Nitya Leela, the Leela of Radha Krishna, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, where everyone is blissfully chanting and serving Krishna. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.